If we now go into the accommodation, you
Mhm.
previously said that it was one of the worst things about studying at
Mhm.
Bournemouth. Where did you live in your first year?
So in my first year, I lived at Cranborne House, which now, now there's a lot more accommodations which have come up, which are a lot nicer. But at the time, it was, one of the best ones to go for within the kind of mid-range price range, but also the one to have the most fun. But however, now a lot of the accommodations, there's a lot more fancy accommodations that are redone up and are very expensive. So one of the kind of issues with the accommodation is that they're ridiculously expensive compared to a lot of other universities, but then you get a much better location than you would get in some places.
In your opinion, what kind of vibe was Cranbourne House? Was it more party or was it more study?
It was definitely party. We're originally coming to university, that was my aim. My aim was to kind of come and enjoy myself and make as many friends as possible. And that the degree was a positive, was a plus. And I think, that's the good thing about being an accommodation like Cranbourne. And the good thing about Bournemouth University is your first year doesn't count. In the terms of you have time to make friends, you have time to socialize and get used to people on your course before in second year when you have to settle down and go, towards your grades, you have a sense of what to expect and stuff like that. But you've also had the time to kind of build relationships.
Now, if we're going to your second year, did you stay? Did you stay in accommodation or did you move into a house?
In second year, I lived in a house in the kind of student area. Yeah.
And what was it like going from an accommodation to a house?
So originally, I was going to drop out of university after first year. And so I wasn't looking at accommodation to live with any of my friends. So actually, me finding my second year house was very random, and I kind of live with strangers I didn't expect to live with. But actually it was much easier because it felt like more like a family, in the sense of course in halls you all have kitchens and living rooms and stuff like that, but they're kind of at the end of the corridor, whereas within the kind of setup of a normal home it's a lot more homely. You have a lot more functional things to do together, and if you wanted to have a couple of people over in the garden, you're more likely to build relationships with people, whereas if you're in halls you can't do that, and the only option is you kind of only see people that you're friends with, rather than having a big group of everyone's friends mixed together. So it was quite hard to adjust in the sense that I didn't know anyone I was living with before I lived with them, but after about a week it was absolutely fine.
And your third year, you were on placement.
Yes, so on my third year I moved back to London so I could work at Disney. So Disney is in West London and I live in North London, so it was just commuting back and forwards every day rather than paying for accommodation or rent. But yeah, I was just back at home.
And now your final year.
And yes, and in my final year, I'm in another student house with the people I lived with in second year, which is really nice as it kind of, binds everyone together for the.
Is there a reason you decided to go to a house and not staying in accommodation aside from you, obviously your first year decisions?
Yeah, so the way the kind of structure is at Bournemouth University for my age group, 2 years below, it is slightly different. You could only live in halls if you were in first year for my second year. Sorry, when I was in second year, you could only live in halls if you were in first year. So the gradual progression was to move to a home. And after living at home for a year and also experiencing kind of both after second year, the people I wanted to live with, we come to the conclusion, and with the pandemic and everything, that it was important to be in a house so that we could have access to a garden and have everything kind of self-contained. But now Bournemouth has sort of progressed more and opened more halls to give options for third years to live in halls, especially if you want to be in town. And I think, if that option was available to me, to potentially that's something I would have looked at. But because the kind of general progression for people my year and older was that, first halls are specifically for first years.
As a media student, you